Hello everybody, this is just going to be a very short video because the last video I made was too long. So I have an answer key online. So I'm basically going to not do the work for you, but just tell you how to do it so that you can, I'll just take you step by step through each thing, and then that should actually help you do it. I'm going to show you my key and just show you how I got all my answers. Okay, hopefully that'll help. As you can see, my key is very colorful and there's a lot going on. So if you go onto Google Classroom, you'll be able to follow along with the key as I go through this video. Alright, so the first thing said, John and Anna's house are on Terrence Avenue, so make sure that you label Terrence Avenue and then give yourself a check. Now, B and C actually go together, so you have to be careful there. I'm sorry if you see the light go on and off. That would be my daughter. Oh, thank you. That makes it better, baby. So it says David's house is on Middlebrook Street, which is perpendicular to Terrence Avenue. But John's house is on the corner of Terrence Avenue and Middlebrook Street. That's my dad, guys. So, in order to create in order to create Middlebrook Street, you have to extend John and do the little circle, like half circle arc. And you can pick any distance you want from John. So if you want to pick a little distance, that's up to you. The distance that you pick has to create the arc that hits Terrence Avenue in 2 spaces. Also remember that everything on here must have a compass. The only thing that doesn't have a compass would be like if you're saying that they live on the same street. Because if they live on the same street, you don't have to use a compass for that. Baby, don't turn on the light. This is good. This is good light for me. So, basically what you see here is I created my arc. And then what I did is I went a little bit more than half, made an arc on the top. A little bit more than half again, I made an arc on the top. And where the 2 arcs intersected, I was able to create Middlebrook Street. So parts B and C are done. Now, as I was walking around the classroom, I see that a lot of you were making a mistake on where Mary is. They said that Mary lives southeast. You have to know your directions. South is down, east is to the right. So you should have went to John and you should have went down and to the right to create Mary. And then if you notice, that's why it's good to read all the directions first. You should notice that Mary and Mary's directions cover D and E. So you should have noticed that after you picked the spot for Mary, you were going to do a parallel construction to create Main Street. The parallel construction is not on the top. It has to be on the bottom because Mary is southeast, down and to the right. So basically, the great thing about this question is that you already have an arc created from that little half circle before. So you can use this arc to do your parallel construction. So you can use this distance from John to this point to go from Mary to this point. Peyton, go turn on the light in the kitchen, please. And then you could measure this distance here for the arc to go to this point that we created from the arc intersection to create the distance of the same angle here. And then here we're able to create Main Street. So now we're all the way up to E. Next thing it says is that Brittany's house is northwest of John's house. So if you look at your little compass, northwest is north and to the left. So if you go north and to the left of John, you can create Brittany. Now, Brittany can't go anywhere because the next thing says that Brittany, John, and Mary are collinear. Remember, that means that they're all on the same line. So if I had already connected Mary to John, I'm going to have to put Brittany on that line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this connection that I had for Mary and John, and I'm just going to extend it and then put Brittany on that line. Now, this line here has no name, so I'm going to call that line South Avenue because it says here that Brittany lives on South Avenue. Okay, So that concludes the picture. So now let's see where this red line came from, which is Philip. Everybody say hi to Peyton. Peyton, say hi.
Hi.
Alright, so the first question says, what's the relationship between Main Street and Middlebrook Street? How do you know? And you know that if you were to extend Main Street all the way to the left, that you'll notice that it's also perpendicular to Middlebrook. The same thing as Terrence. And the rule basically says that if two lines are parallel, then if one line is perpendicular, that the parallel line will also be perpendicular. This is a rule of something called corresponding angles, which we will go into in like second quarter. No, this quarter, but like November. Alright, so now it says Hannah lives on Phillip Street. Her house is collinear to John and Anna. Well, here's John, here's Anna, so Hannah has to live on this street. And then it says her house is equidistant to John and Anna. Once I know equidistant, that means we're talking about a perpendicular bisector. So you just go to John, go more than half, make an arc, and then go to Anna, make the same distance arc, and here's my perpendicular bisector. The difference between these two is that this line is going to be directly in the middle of these 2 points, and these two sides are going to be exactly the same distance. This line is just perpendicular. That means if you were to put the perpendicular line here, this distance is shorter than this whole distance. So they're not the same thing. So Hannah would go right in the middle because she has to be on the same street as John and Anna in order to be collinear. And she would be in the middle because her distance to her house has to be the same to the distance to Anna's house. Alright, the last question is, what's the relationship between South Avenue, which is this avenue here, and Terrence? And basically you would say there's no relationship because South Avenue is neither parallel nor perpendicular. Now somebody else said South Avenue and Terrence Avenue create an angle. You can say that. I mean, that doesn't exactly say a relationship, but that's okay. So I know that that went kind of fast, but hopefully you can read through my key on the Google Classroom and see how I did each step. Alright, the next question I'm going to go over is this question here, talking about slicing a cake. I apologize that I didn't give you this point in the middle. This construction is almost impossible without this point in the middle. So basically what I did is I figured out where the point would be. So if you're doing this at home, just find a point that would be directly in the middle in order to do this construction. So once you put your point in the middle, then what you're going to do is your point in the middle of the circle represents this point. And you're going to measure the distance. Sorry, that might be upside down. You're going to measure the distance as if you're copying an angle. So measure that distance. And what you're going to do with that distance is create an inner circle. So this distance you have here is going to allow for you to create an inner circle. Then you're going to measure how far apart your angle is, and what you're going to do is put a point where you made that circle, and you're just going to put a point right there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to measure the distance on the circle and make an arc. Then you're going to go to that same distance, make another arc. Go to that one, make an arc. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep making an arc till you're back to your original point that you had made. That point was created by measuring this distance to create your inner circle. And then when you're done, if this is done correctly, you should be able to connect top to bottom, which is called vertical. You should be able to connect left to right, which is called horizontal. And then you should be able to have two diagonal connections. If not, you did something wrong and you have to check your measurements again. And everything has to be exact on the compass. And then you're going to count and make sure that you extend your line all the way to the bigger circle, because our slices are actually coming from the bigger circle. And you'll notice that we have 8 slices of pie. So will there be any slices left over? No. because there's going to be 8 even slices and there won't be any left over. Alright, so that concludes this video. This video is only going to cover numbers 1 and 2. The next videos will cover 3, 4, and 5.